Hey, this is Malika of Evanston Live TV, and I have with me, her title has changed. She will be speaking today as Anya Tanyavutti, former president of District 65 School Board. I'm so used to saying, Anya Tanyavutti, president of school board, District 65, D65, she's D65. Welcome back, Anya. Welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you again, as usual. And yes, as of Monday, we had our annual reorganization meeting. And after 5 years of being in board leadership, the first three as vice president and the last two as president, I am now a board member, which means that I'm no longer, for the last 2 years, I've been a spokesperson for the board as the president. And now as a board member, I'm no longer spokesperson for the board. I can speak for myself and I can speak for my record. And I'm excited for this transition for myself. As I mentioned in my speech on Monday night, the last 5 years have been inspiring and beautiful and necessary in many ways, but especially the last 2 years have also been very painful. The levels of anti-Black racism that have shown themselves to us have been very, very high. And, I think we'd like to believe that we live in a world and in a community where folks have really challenged those beliefs. And I think, we do have a lot of people in our community who are challenging those beliefs, but we have a lot of folks who are holding on tight to what feels comfortable and familiar to them in terms of anti-Black racism, and who have incited anti-Black racism from across the nation to target our community as well. And that's been painful, that's been exhausting, it's been a fight that we've had to navigate. And it's time for me to be kind to myself and kind to my family, and loving to myself as a Black woman, and allow myself to have a little rest and renewal. I'm happy for the board, and we have strong leadership and representative leadership that's stepping up, and I'm really proud of them. And I was the first Black woman president of the District 65 board. Sergio Hernandez is the first Latino to be president of the District 65 board, and Marquise Weatherspoon will be vice president. They're going to be a powerhouse leadership team, and I'm really proud of them and excited for the next steps for District 65 and for myself.
Girl, I'm excited for you, Anya. You achieved so much in your time as the president and before. So you've been serving 5 years now. I remember interviewing you for your run, your campaign. And girl, you came in, you kicked the door in, and just you did it. So I'm calling you like Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan retired like at the top of his game. I didn't understand why he came back though. It was like, retire at the top of your game. You achieved something that took over 50 years. You, along with the board and many, many others, of course, but that was one of your goals, was to put a school back into the Fifth Ward. So to me, you are Evanston's first reparations. You are part of the crew that actually brought in our first reparations that repaired a harm from over 50 years ago. So, but you've achieved so many things. And I was looking at your list from your speech, your farewell speech as the president. I was like, this girl's list is like, you've done so much. And I don't know that people know all of what you achieved in that 5 years. What would you say is, one of the top 3 things that you're most proud of and probably took the most out of you to get done?
My first 6 months on the board, there were really only two equity voices, myself and Sunny.
Mhm.
And that was many times heart wrenching. It
Mhm.
felt suffocating. It felt heart wrenching. And I felt like if uh, an adult, a black woman who's an adult, who has some agency, who has some understanding of what's going on, who has her master's degree in education, feel minimized, feel silenced, feel suffocated, then how must it feel for our most vulnerable? How must it feel for folks who don't have, for children who don't have the language to describe their conditions, who don't have the age privilege to, force anyone to listen to them? Um, I I just felt like this is not an acceptable way of doing children and families. Um, and when I first came to the board, the other thing, my children were not school aged at the time. My children were very young, and I I knew that I wanted to be able to have a joyful and peaceful kindergarten drop off like white parents get to have. At the time in our district, white parents could drop their kids off at kindergarten and feel a sense of joy and pride for their kids. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you made this accomplishment, and what's next for you? I can't wait for you to learn and see the world open up for you. And that was not the same experience that people of color were having when they were dropping their kids off. When they were dropping their kids off, oftentimes they were putting their children on the bus. They didn't get to see them off personally. If they did get to see them off personally, it was in a sea of faces that didn't look like their own. And they had to wonder, is my child going to be treated like every other child? Is my child going aptitude going to be invested in? Or am I going to get inundated with calls saying, pathologizing my child, over disciplining my child? Like, is this going to be a positive experience, or do I need to gear myself up for a fight? And so some people were crying tears of joy, and other people were crying tears of fear. And I think that distinctly fell along the lines of race. And it just felt so unpalatable because as, someone who had the opportunity to raise my children very close to them, I could not fathom turning them over to an institution that was not going to love them the way that I love them, that was not going to cherish them and pour into them the way that I did. And I just felt like it was unacceptable for anyone else to have to carry that worry, and that worry be solely burdened along the lines of race. And so for me, I think what feels like the biggest accomplishment is when, I have folks who tell me like, I wasn't sure if I could send my child to district black and brown folks. I wasn't sure if I could send my child to District 65, but they're here and they're having a great time. And now that, you all have done the work that you've done, I feel good. I feel safe. I feel happy to bring my child to District 65. And I know my child is learning, and my children will accomplish great things. And I feel like I'm benefiting from our local school district in ways that I haven't been able to before, or generations before me haven't been able to. That is an accomplishment. That is what I wanted to do. And part of why, bringing school to the Fifth Ward was so important was just the levels of sheer generational trauma that folks had experienced in being bussed out of their neighborhoods and then feeling subsequently mistreated and treated as if their school was not their school, when they too are paying taxes and they too are working hard to make sure they show up every single day. They too are volunteering and giving as much as they can, but they were treated as if these schools, that District 65 didn't also belong to them. And that trauma just, it felt unacceptable for us to know that trauma was happening, but to not do anything about it. Um, and so I'm overjoyed that we were able to last month pass the resolution for the school and to also have the funding for the school. Um, our fiscal state when I first came to the district was terrible. And we are in so much better of a place. Like every time I went to a finance meeting, it was just tremendous anxiety because we just were in such a terrible fiscal state. And I knew that the people who would suffer the most under a system that was not anti racist were going to be the most vulnerable. And so if we didn't get our fiscal house right, the most vulnerable people were going to be threatened by that instability. And so it's really important that we get our finances in order. Um, I think, the fact that we made sure that anti-racist training was available to all educators, all staff, as well as our community was transformational for our community, but also our institution. And that was a really pivotal change. Um, and that was probably one of the first hurdles that we needed to overcome. But probably the second most exciting thing, the only time I've ever done a high five at a board meeting, was the vote for the Fifth Ward School and to make our district walkable and, ecologically um, more sustainable and fiscally more responsible. That was the culmination of a lot of work. Um, Even our first, when we, Dr. Horton did his day in the district during his interview process, he got to tour, several of our schools and meet staff members, and he had a lunch with myself and Sunny at the time because we were president and vice president. And he's like, I love it. I love it here. It's amazing. And we were like, yeah, it is. And we have some really important work to do. And I took that time to tell him about the Fifth Ward and the fact that there was not a school and the fact that we didn't have money for what we knew was a correction that our institution needs to figure out how to make in a way that was sustainable and good for the entire institution. And he didn't flinch. He was just like, that is definitely tragic. And that's that's a task that I'd be willing to take on. And I think that I'm the next superintendent to do that for you. And so from the interview process, he knew that this was a big challenge, a trauma that needed to be repaired, a big challenge at hand for the next leader, and he took it on. And the board is meant to set the vision and to supervise the superintendent, but a strong superintendent also knows how to manage up and make sure that they can support the board in being the best governance body that it can be, so that he has the stability and the leadership. She, or they have the stability and leadership that they need in order to do their work. So, he came in with a vision for how we could tackle the big challenges, and it really was 5 years of work to get our community in a space to be ready to have a conversation about a Fifth Ward school, and then further to get our institution in a place to be able to sustainably have the conversation, to lead our community through a conversation. It was just very intricate, strategic, collaborative work with folks in our community, with folks in our institution. And I'm just so grateful. We had so many stakeholders who were a part of it. Henry approached me with STEM School Evanston a number of times, and every time I said, Henry, I'm gonna get it done. And sometimes Henry would say, like, are you sure? Are you sure? Because in the past, the boards have let us down. Are you sure? And I said, Henry, I'm sure. I'm sure. Let's work together. Trust me. We're gonna make this happen. And lo and behold, March 14th, 2022, we were able to bring all of that strategic and collaborative work to a head. And we are ready to go. We're ready to go after
Yes.
56 years.
After 56 years, and you got the funding in place, you got the money, you still got parents out there, some people out there who want to stop the progress, but you all are like, this train has already left the station. We are doing it. We are doing it. We are doing it. And Anya, I've heard, the pain that you've gone through in doing all of this work. I mean, you've done a lot with early childhood education, not to mention COVID. You all were the first board to deal with a pandemic. And I mean, you were getting so much pushback on that for wanting to just keep the kids safe. Like you didn't want to risk losing one child in the pandemic. So you wanted to keep the kids home and safe. And to me, that made so much sense. It just showed that you cared. Dr. Horton cared, the board cared, the teachers, you wanted to protect the educators in the buildings. And you all were getting like horrible threats and horrible nasty letters. So not to mention just the race issue in Evanston, which I think a lot of people don't realize how thick it really is. um, and then you all had to deal with a pandemic. So I totally understand. You're like, my work is done. I'm going to get my peace back, my zen back. That was a lot in 5 years to deal. And you got through it. I mean, we're still in the pandemic, but you got through it and made some things happen. So um, I wish times would change in terms of the whole race issue. I would say D65, those are some of the biggest complaints that I hear about. And I think when I did the forum for D65 for the candidates, um, I really saw it then with, I really saw, I won't say names, but I was like, damn, this is what they are really up. They're up against some parents who, wow, wow.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought up the achievement information because that's something I definitely want our community to celebrate, to know about, and own and feel good about. Um,
Yes.
and we certainly, white supremacy is agile, white supremacy is dogged, and it's not going anywhere. Um, and
And the thing is, people think
generally,
white supremacy is, well, there's no KKK walking around. There's nobody with tiki torches and white sheets walking around here. No, they don't look like that anymore. They don't look like that anymore. They
yeah,
look
and
like regular
so
people.
yeah, I say white supremacy in the context of, the belief in the moral rightness and social correctness of racial
Mhm,
hierarchy.
mhm.
And I think, one of the things that our investments and our equity work have proven is that that is a fallacy. When racial hierarchy is held up by disproportionate investments and disproportionate distribution of opportunities, it's maintained. But when you invest for equity, Black and Brown people show up and show out, and that's just the bottom line. Um, when we held in 2016, we asked that a early childhood task force be started. Or in 2017, we asked that an early childhood task force be started. Several of us, myself included, Sergio Hernandez, and several members of OPAL, which is no longer in existence, but we all sat on the Racial Equity Task Force along with many other community members. And we contributed to that work from 2017 to 2018. As a result of that work, a strategic plan for early childhood was established, and a new director of the early childhood programs at JEH was hired. Um, she was very clear that what her marching orders were. And she understood the assignment. And she, in 2020, in the height of the pandemic, showed us that our early childhood data was no longer predictable along the lines of race. I'll say that again. We had standardized test data that was no longer, or I wouldn't call it standard. I guess it is a standardized test, but it's not a bubble standard. It's not like a Scantron standardized test. It's an interactive standardized test between children and adults. But that data was not predictable along the lines of race. JEH is primarily Black and Brown and students with IEP, and primarily students who have a household income that's considered low income. And those students were demonstrating 2 years prior only 30% kindergarten readiness when they left JEH. So they were in our arms, in our care for 2 years, and only 30% of them were ready for kindergarten in 2017 or in 2016. But in 2020, 70% of the children that left JEH were kindergarten ready. So what is critical about that is when children are kindergarten ready, according to education research, when there is not a racial differential in kindergarten readiness, children mirror each other's achievement going forward. So once we address that gap in kindergarten readiness, we have a recipe for closing the gap in opportunity to achieve. That is monumental. There have been so many models that have proposed how to close the gap in opportunity to achieve, and have not been able to do it, have not been able to sustain it. But we not only got that data in 2020, we also saw it, or we got it in January 2021. I apologize. It was 2020, 2021 data that we got in January 2021. And we saw that data show up again in 2022. And in 2021, that data showed that our Latinx students in JEH were not growing at the same rate as all of the other students. But in 2021, when we saw that data, they were growing at the same rate. And so we are demonstrating we have a model for investing care, investing vision, investing training into a institution and disrupting the racial hierarchy and demonstrating that this data does not have to be predictable along the lines of race. Achievement actually is not associated with folks' racial background. And we can disrupt that narrative. And we've seen that with Algebra for All. We've seen that with adoption of new middle school math curriculum writ large. The data is not predictable. The growth data is not predictable along the lines of race. And last summer, our board had a discussion about adopting a model called academic skill centers into our buildings. It's a trimester of tutoring that provides intensive tutoring for students who are achieving between the 50th and 25th percentiles in standardized tests. And it has demonstrated that that short period of intensive tutoring is resulting in bringing children to grade level. So many institutions will write off the achievement, the gap in opportunity to achieve, and they say, well, this is not our responsibility. Like we could say this is not our responsibility. Children showed up in kindergarten, not kindergarten ready, and then we just weren't able to close the gap. But our equity focus has said, no, it is our responsibility to every single child to make sure that they are performing to their aptitude. And we are going to stretch ourselves to bring them to performance at their aptitude. And that's what the Academic Skills Center does. It tells those children, I know that you're struggling right now. We're going to give you a shot of intensive tutoring, and we are going to bring you to grade level, and you are going to thrive. We believe in you. We believe in you, and we love you, and we're going to show up with resources. We're not going to leave you floundering. Um, and I think our community deserves to feel proud about that, because that is work that many governance bodies, many communities haven't done, investments that folks have not made, and they make excuses for why
Mm.
inequities persist. But we don't have to live like that. We don't have to accept the bare minimum.
Girl, yes, yes, yes. I don't think the public really knows that you all got that going. You are you're closing it. The achievement gap that people have been talking about. I think since I moved back here to Evanston, they've been talking about it. And D65, this board, for the past 5 years, that has been your focus, and you're closing it. It's closing. The doors are closing. It's closing. It's closing.
Yes, and we are seeing the maintenance of rigor. We have not lowered our standards in terms of our expectations. We still have
Mm.
rigorous curriculum. Um, there have been some folks who are like, "Oh, the curriculum's getting watered down." Our we eliminated massive and probably overused math acceleration, and we embedded a policy of accelerating children within the classes that they are in, having a curriculum that is diversified enough to give every child what they need in the classes that they are in, so that they can maintain their relationships with their peers and still do work that is challenging to them. Um, and even with the eliminating math acceleration, the fact is that the way that we provide math instruction in District 65 allows that every child gets to algebra and completes algebra by 8th grade. And that is a full year ahead of what everyone else in the nation is doing in terms of their math. And so our math curriculum on its baseline is accelerated. And so we've maintained rigor, we've maintained focus on high expectations, and we have not, and I said this a lot when I was first running, that we're not shifting a lens. We are broadening our lens. We are saying we are still narrowed in on rigor and high expectations, but we are doing it for everyone. And we believe that we can do it for everyone. And, there are those folks who are really committed to how things used to be done, or things that maybe felt familiar to them. But we know what was familiar, we know the outcomes of that. Um, so we're doing something new, and we're seeing that folks feel humanized, they feel excited, they feel hopeful, they feel like they can dream again. And that's where I was tearing up when I was reading my speech, is that, this is about our right to be hopeful and to dream, and that is a human right. And, for much of the history in this country, people of color have not had an equal opportunity to hope and dream for ourselves and our children. And, having a school district that is truly serving as the common good for everyone in the community means that everyone believes that they can hope and dream for their future. And, I think that these children have such a blessing in the rigorous education that they're receiving, but in the authentic relationships that they have with their peers. They know how to have conversations about their peers' real lived experiences. People are not only sharing a part of themselves with each other, they're able to share their full cultural experience, their full historical context, and have authentic and empathetic relationships with each other. And I think these children are going to be unstoppable in their genius, but also in their community and
Mm.
their their sense of connection to humanity. And I'm really proud of them, and I'm really proud of us fighting. It has been a fight. We have fought to do this for our children and our community. But I am just so hopeful and so proud. And it there's
You
a
should
lot that
be. You should be very, very proud because you came in and changed. And like you said, there are people who wanted to keep everything the way that it was, and that wasn't working for everyone. And so the fact that your term and the team that you had, you all were determined to be inclusive of everyone, make sure everyone has an experience, everyone is developing, everyone is being poured into. And yeah, I mean, you have those who don't like that, unfortunately, but you all achieved it. You're achieving it. And I mean, it's got to feel great to leave at this point because you did a lot, Anya.
Thank you. Yeah, and I would say, I've said this quote before. I don't know if I've said it to you in Evanston Live TV, but I truly believe if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together. And
Mhm.
so, you know, there were times where I could just say, I'm the president of the board. I know that this is what we need to do. This is what we're going to do. But never has that been my approach because I believe in the power of the collective. And, our entire board, our entire administration has collaboratively contributed their brilliance to this vision. And that feels amazing. That that is incredible. We can do great things together. We can do
I
hard things
applaud you,
together.
girl. I applaud you. I salute you. I salute you. You are a force in this community. Thank you so much, Anya. And Mr. Hernandez, he, not to say he's got some shoes to fill, he's going to create his own shoes, but we're hoping that he keeps up the fire and the fight, because the fight is never quite over. But you it was like God put the right people in the right place at the right time. So he put some fighters, Dr. Horton, you, I mean, the board, everyone on the board, the new board that came along, um, some real fighters and people with vision. That is key. You came in with vision and you never lost
Yeah,
sight of that vision.
yeah, and our relationship with our district educators council has been a part of that as well. We've really worked to, like I said, to make sure that it's not just the board, not just administration, but that our educators were part of the conversation as well. And so we have, this triad of folks who are working together, who are communicating, who are problem solving, for all of our children, with the kids at the center, right? Our kids and our
Mhm.
families are in the middle. They are the focus. And I'm a former educator. I'm not licensed in Illinois, but I have my degrees in education. I taught in Michigan. Um, Sergio is a bilingual educator. I think he's still licensed in Illinois.
Mhm.
And Marquise has been an incredible advocate, for children and all children in our community. And so
Marquise
Marquise
will
and
definitely bring
Sergio,
the fire. I feel for anybody that goes up against Marquise. I love her energy. I love her heart. She cares. She cares.
yeah, she has the mindset and the heart, and so does Sergio, and they're going to be a powerhouse leadership team, and I'm proud of them. I'm also proud of the leadership teams that I was able to work on with Sunny Cartha and with Biz Lindsay Ryan, um, you know, and with all of our board colleagues. I mean, this is not solo work, and so um, that's why it's also important for our community to be engaged with these conversations and to know what's going right and what's going awry, right? So that we have our community needs to know the players and needs to know the topics so that
Mhm.
we can be engaged. These school board elections are no joke. And they have a tremendous, tremendous impact on all of our lived experiences. And I know that something that I've definitely heard our priorities for Sergio are maintaining that collaborative relationship with our educators and strengthening where possible that collaborative relationship with our educators, continuing to support our racial equity work and doing policy through an equity and inclusive lens, as well as, holding our peer institutions in the community responsible for our collaboration with each other, including the city of Evanston, and really thinking about where are we having substantive, meaningful conversations between institutions, because we're collaborating to serve the same populace and we need to do that well. And
Mhm.
so, we have certainly had an opinion. I've had an opinion as a school board leader on how that collaboration should look in order to serve our community better. And I think Sergio and Marquise will continue that conversation and that leadership. And I
Oh, Anya, you froze.
um,
Okay, we're back. Had some tech issues there. Okay, everything looks good. Everything looks good.
All right, we're back in business. We are flexible people.
Yes, yes. It's all about being able to pivot. Let's pivot. Just keep it moving, keep it going. But girl, thank you so much, Anya, for coming on today. I know you have some much R&R that you're preparing for. When you were running off everything that the board has done in the past 5 years, it's all for free. Like you're thinking, a person who's getting all of this done should be paid like top dollar. I mean, because that was a lot of transformation, a lot of changes, shifting that you all achieved in that 5 years. So you would think you were getting paid like the big bucks, and you did this sheer from just vision, no pay, just your own time. That
Yes,
alone.
that's why I call this work hard work. It's hard work, but it's also hard work. And yeah, all 7 board members are volunteers, and we get paid nothing in order to do this work, but we do it, and I think we've done it well because we understand the impact. I think there's been times where folks have done this work and held these positions for the vanity of them.
Mm,
And I can certainly say with confidence that, part of my work as a leader has been to remain humble and to remain connected and to remain, locked in on the vision so that this didn't become a vanity project. And I think that my colleagues equally have done the same.
mm,
And we also, we pay our administrators a lot of money to be the professional executive executors of the work and the vision that we have. Um, and they've done a good job of carrying that responsibility as well.
mm.
So, it's part of the model, and I think we've done some incredible, revolutionary, groundbreaking work that I hope is normalized. This is how service to community should look.
Yes, yes. I
And I
I, I
mean,
wish I
there
wish
will be
parts of our
no
s- I wish parts of our city council operated in the same way, and saw us as not as children, but vision for true being inclusive, what it really means to be inclusive, and making sure that everyone is good, everyone is being poured into. And what you get out of that, what you're going to get out of that is some children who are going to go on to achieve some amazing things because they've been nurtured, they've had the structure, the development, the education, and the understanding of others and being open to understanding others. So, it would be amazing to, if our city council kind of ran with that same motto. You'd be surprised. Like Evanston is a great town. It's a great city, but sometimes I think the leadership can be the problem in the progress. But you all were ones who contributed to the progress. So again, I salute you and applaud
Well,
you.
thank you.
Yes, yes. And I know, I read some horrible media outlets here in Evanston who were only listening to the voice of some parents who were not about things being inclusive. And I just thought that that was so unfair to you all. And I hope that they see now the vision. And you can't battle the numbers. Documentation beats conversation any day. And you all stayed on task, and thank you. I don't have children in D65, but I am thanking you for all the parents. I'm thanking you. And they need to be careful what they're reading out there and actually hear it from the horse's mouth, what's actually happening. But thank you so much, Anya, for your time. And the door is
Thank
always
you.
open to you, and I can't wait to hear what you got next. But you need to take a break. You need to go get a massage. You need to go on a vacation. All that work, girl. I mean, it had to like
Yeah.
take a toll on you. Physically. That was a lot of work. That was a lot of work.
It, it was. There's just two last things I wanted to say. One is that everything that we have done has been in public and documented. And I've also had a number of conversations with Dina Robinson from Shorefront Legacy Center, and so it's documented in those archives. It is documented on YouTube. It is in our board books. This is not a secret sauce. It is a public good, and it's meant to provide, inspiration and navigation to anyone who wants to follow and learn and make it anew. It's available, and our website is chock full of resources as well. And the last thing I wanted to mention is when I was saying racial equity has led to inclusivity for so many vulnerable groups of people, I also wanted to acknowledge our Indigenous population and how powerful it is to have a land acknowledgement that we read at the beginning of every single one of our meetings to remind us of our responsibility to repair with Indigenous folks, to repair with the descendants of enslaved folks, to repair for everyone who has been left out and has been left out as a result of following those models of genocide. We don't have to continue to replicate any of that. We don't have to continue to hold on to the vestiges of any of that. We can imagine something anew that is loving and caring. And I think we've done that, and we can continue to do that. And I look forward to our seats one day being occupied by the children who are learning in our institution right now. And they can show us all that they have learned and that they have cultivated. I'm excited to live in the world that we are building. So,
Yes,
and
yes.
thank you, Malika, for offering a platform for voices that historically have been left out and stories that have historically have been left out. And, we need to, those of us who have felt left out or have felt misrepresented by media, need sources to tell our stories and to share our narratives. And they're often very different from what we see in mainstream outlets. And that takes a lot of bravery and creativity and commitment to humanity on your part. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anya. And I fully, I've got some vision, but like you, I've got some people out there trying to shut me down because they don't like that I get the other point of view. That I just don't get a paycheck from certain leaders in the community to tell the story one way, but it takes people with vision and who really care, who just really care and want everyone to be heard. Um, but I
Well, I don't
salute
know
you,
about
girl.
you, Malika, but I was a little Black girl that people did not believe in.
Mhm.
And so, I was a little Black girl that many institutions cast aside. They said,
Mm,
oh, she's, from a single parent household. She's from a low income household. She's not going to do anything important. We don't need to fully invest in her. And I felt
mm,
that. And I
mm,
knew when these institutions didn't care about me. Um,
mm.
but here we are, right? And that's what I said in my speech. I want every child who once upon a time felt like folks didn't believe in them or felt like folks who look like them were not going to do anything. I want for them to know you are somebody and you will do something incredible. And don't let
Yes,
anyone tell you what you can and cannot do. And we are those to say, yes, you can dream big and you can hope and we can and will do great things, and you need not be discouraged by anyone's lack of imagination if you have your own.
yes, yes. And please put your bracelets up to
Oh,
the camera. Because
for all the
yes.
doubters, once upon a time, strong, it says strong than you know. And that is a reminder to everyone else and to myself that I'm stronger than, sometimes I am stronger than I know. I am stronger than what other folks know. And yeah, our ancestors did things that folks thought were impossible because they were stronger than folks knew. And just sometimes we need that reminder. We need to let other people know too, like we are descendants of greatness, and we have vision, and we have compassion for days, and we can do great things.
Yes, yes. And we'll end it on that note. You are stronger than you know, people. You heard it from Anya Tanyavutti. She is going to go take care of herself. She has poured her all into all the children of D65, into the parents, and she is going on a much needed R&R and gearing up for her next vision. I'm sure she's got one. And you be sure to come back to Evanston Live TV and tell us what that next journey is for you, Anya. But you all stay tuned right here at Evanston Live TV. We've got amazing people doing amazing things. And Anya Tanyavutti, she's one of my favorites here in Evanston. Absolutely. And you see why. The girl is bad. She's strong. She is strong. She is strong. And she lets you know that you are strong. Have the vision. Stay engaged, you all. Evanston Live TV.